Now, at this point, I'm going to ask each of you to think about how you would answer the questions that I'm going to ask. And they're this. Do you think that others believe that you're more competent than you really are? Do you tend to remember the times where you didn't do your best more often than the ones that you did? Do you sometimes think you got to where you are today because you happened to be at the right place at the right time, or that you knew the right people? Are you sometimes afraid that others will discover how little you really know? If you've answered some of those questions yes, then you won't be unfamiliar with the phenomenon I'm about to describe. As you've gathered, it hasn't been unfamiliar to me. It's called the imposter syndrome. It's a plague of self-doubt that affects high-achieving women. And it affects women far more often than men. The imposter syndrome is insidious. It manifests itself every single day in our law firms when women don't speak up, when we don't offer our opinion, even to counter someone whose views we know are entirely wrong-headed. We feel it at the office, on examinations, in court, when the other side, often a man, is sarcastic or sharp or just disagrees. We let our inside voice say, "He's right. I really have no clue what I'm talking about." Sheryl Sandberg is the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. And she's been speaking out a lot recently about the imposter syndrome. She says, if you ask a man why he did a good job, he'll say, "It's because I'm awesome." Woo! Well, that was my new shoe. Brand new, first wear. If you ask a woman the same question, why you did a good job, a woman will say, "I'm lucky. I got somebody good to help me." So I agree with Sheryl Sandberg when she says women don't feel that they deserve their success. So I'm here today to tell you not to fling your arms around. My feet are wet. But I'm here today to tell you that you deserve your success. But I'm also here to tell you that success doesn't come easily for anybody, whether they're male or whether they're female. And let me also remind you, there is no perfect lawyer out there. There is no lawyer whose argument is always accepted, who is consistently compelling, who never makes the wrong judgment call. Throughout your career, you are going to meet lawyers who are better than you are, and you'll meet ones who are worse. And I don't know if anybody remembers Desiderata, but, always there will be greater and lesser persons than ourselves. Being successful, though, is a process. And as part of that process, from time to time, we're going to face rejection, disapproval, ostracism, jealousy. It's especially true for litigators. We're in an adversarial system. We're also in competitive law firm environments. Satoshi Kanazawa, who is a writer for Psychology Today, suggests that women may have more difficulty than men in handling their reactions to disapproval and rejection. And this may be, well, why some of us tend to feel the sting of litigation more keenly. But we are the only ones that can control our reactions, and we alone have the responsibility for how we respond. Now, that's the negative side of the imposter syndrome. On the positive side, there's little doubt that women with imposter syndrome are often highly motivated strivers. We will often out-prepare and out-credential everybody else. That's a great thing. At least it worked for me. But problematically, we out-prepare everyone because it's our own personal race to avoid detection. And what's a bit bemusing and paradoxical, of course, that it means that our efforts mean that we get ever-increasing kudos, which can in turn mean that our feelings of unworthiness can be even more intense. It's a cycle. Susan Pinker is a psychologist and an author. And she says that while those who suffer from imposter syndrome will continue to succeed, we don't experience satisfaction with our careers or any relief from the strain of striving for perfection until we realize that we suffer from it. And I think that's true. So how do we find that relief? And the answer is this. We have to match our perception to reality. I spent my first years in Toronto hiding my Saskatchewan farm roots. I was afraid that everyone from Toronto would take me for a country bumpkin. Turns out, I now know that most of them think that being from the prairies means you have common sense and good judgment. But now I understand there's also some techniques that I could have used earlier to stop feeling like an imposter, and I want to pass them on to you. Try to separate how you perceive yourself from the way that others perceive you. Really listen to third-party evaluations. They are far less biased than the ones you give yourself through your imposter-colored lenses. Make sure you give yourself an opportunity to compete. Speak up. Push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Build up a little armor, and don't take it all personally. We're in an adversarial system, so prepare yourself for some criticism. Don't let your internal editor prevent you from showing what you know. Don't go it alone. Talk to friends, talk to colleagues, talk to a coach, and find a mentor who believes in you. I often wish I'd really tried to replace my first mentor. I really didn't have to stay an island for all those years at my law firm at all. And speaking of that mentor, all my life's a circle, because 25 years later, he and I are back in the same office. I still think he's a terrific lawyer, and he's still funny and smart and kind. And while I still ask him for advice, as often as not, he comes to my office to ask advice of me. Next, enjoy your successes. Enjoy the victories. Acknowledge praise when it comes your way. Don't deflect compliments. Take pleasure in what you've done, and please don't sweat the one thing that wasn't perfect. And finally, I can tell you from personal experience, accept that this is a slow process. It helps a lot to understand what makes you tick. I was afraid of being seen as the country hick. But that wasn't the only thing that evoked self-doubt in me for so long. I also grew up with a mother who was mentally ill, and I spent many years believing that if I was the perfect child, my mother would be the happy, loving, and charming person she could be, but very rarely was. It took me a really long time to understand and adapt to the impact of those parts of my life. But I take comfort that Dr. Rosalind Lang, who's a molecular scientist in the US and very successful, says this: once you recognize imposter syndrome in yourself, you can talk it down. You can say to yourself, I've gotten this far for a reason. I'm here because I'm doing great work. It's where I'm supposed to be. And perfection? It just doesn't exist. So let me close by saying this. Don't let your inside voice slow you down. We're members of a terrific profession. We work with talented colleagues. Our work challenges our minds. We get paid well. And the thrill of victory, it's pretty sweet. But best of all, in our work, we solve people's problems. And we do that every single day. So turn down the volume on your inside voice. Revel in what we do. And stay the course. Thanks.